Hello, and welcome to a Miles Better Conversation. This is going to be a selection of interesting and revealing a range of interviews with our clients and business leaders from around the world. Each interview should last around 20 to 30 minutes. During the interview, I'm going to be asking what I refer to as the Miles Better 10 conversations, a selection of revealing and probing questions about our guests, business approach, and more. My name is Colin Miles, and I'm the CEO and founder of Miles Better. I'm excited to introduce our first guest today, Stuart Miles. Yes, same name, my brother, but he is the CEO of PocketLint.com. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stuart, and allowing us to put you on the spot. But before we start, I thought it was only fair to allow you to introduce yourself.
Wow, there's an opening for you. Yes, my name's Stuart. I'm your brother. It's always a good way to start. Family starts at home, doesn't it? And all the other stuff, except you're halfway around the world. Yeah, I suppose I'm me. I founded Pocket Lint 17 years ago. It's probably what the key element you're looking for there, rather than my love of drinking wine. And have grown it from a £15 investment. .co.uk's were expensive back in 2003, to a business that's today that employs around about 15 people, has 10 million unique users a month, and is trying to fight the fight of delivering good content on a daily basis.
Wow. Okay, so that's an interesting 17 years. I hadn't realised it had been so long, Stuart. Is that how long we've been working together now?
Yeah, it's I know 2003. Before, and this is what's fascinating about Pocket Lint, for those that aren't aware, is a consumer technology website. We look at news, the latest news announcements in consumer tech. We review the latest products, and then we do a load of features to help you get the most out of tech, get more out of it. Whether it's buying guides for which toothbrush you need to get, or electric toothbrush you need to get, or whether it's understanding what a new functionality or feature of the Xbox One is, or whatever. We're trying to help and kind of understand technology as it's constantly changing and evolving. And as you can imagine, over the last 17 years, I've seen quite a lot of different things. We're talking pre-iPhone, pre-tablets, pre-electric cars, pretty much most things. Pre Twitter, pre everything.
Really.
And as a technology journalist, first and foremost, when I first started, I've been covering the industry since the late '90s, and so I even remember kind of someone going, "Look, what's this thing? It's called Google. It's really exciting. You should try it." So I've been around for a while.
Well, so probably Lotus Notes might just predate you, as I'm a little older than you. But even those, who knew where they were going?
Exactly. Lots, and what's fascinating is lots of things. I've seen over the time. We've seen the rise of BlackBerry and then the decline of BlackBerry. BlackBerry phones huge at one point. Dominated number one. BlackBerries.
Crackberries,
Yeah,
not
exactly.
BlackBerry.
And now
Yeah.
you don't own a BlackBerry. Nobody owns a BlackBerry anymore. And the same with Nokia. And then we've seen more instantly the rise of just a multitude of different technologies and coming. And so we've kind of had to adapt of what we do and what we cover, and how we run things over that time, which I think is one of the keys there of staying relevant.
Yeah. I mean, podcasts. Look at what we're doing now together. It used to be you'd have to write a blog. Even that was revolutionary. But before that, were newspaper articles. So yes, exactly. Very interesting. All right. So Pocket Lint, where is it? Where is it at the moment? What's really exciting Pocket Lint in the technology world? What should we be looking at and reading on your latest review?
Well, I think it's quite an interesting time at the moment. You've obviously there's certainly towards the end of the year, we've got two brand new consoles that are launching from Sony and Xbox. So there's going to be a big next generation battle for the gamers out there. Gaming has over the years become more and more relevant and more interesting. As a long time ago, it used to be, probably when you first started gaming, Colin, it was Ataris and Commodore 64s, and
sitting in my bedroom quietly playing, not with myself, but
pretty careful how you say that, but it's that sort of,
yes, exactly. I just thought that maybe that's not the quite right
without
phrase,
giving too much of our family history away, Tandy TRS 80s, that kind of stuff. Right now, you're looking at Sony PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X. There are a sense, these are state of the art gaming consoles, which will start to blur the realms of, certainly from some games, of what is real and what is computer generated, and that you're playing computer generated. That's kind of where it's come. There's technologies called ray tracing, which are kind of going to make games even more realistic and all those things. As they become more bigger and more powerful, they become more expensive and all the other stuff. They're not necessarily, that's going to dominate towards the end of the year, certainly from that field. You've then got electric cars are coming to the forefront at the moment. As we shift away from a sustainability point of view, more and more people, certainly in the UK, there is requirements of everybody must be selling electric cars by, I think it's 2025. So you're starting to get to this point where there'll be a tipping point, not of if of when, but it's that sense of, the chances are that people's cars that they're going to buy next car they're going to buy, if they're buying a new car, it's going to be electric, fully electric, or it's going to be a hybrid of some nature. And therefore, what does that mean? Where do the companies like Tesla sit into it? Volkswagen are starting to get into electric cars, as are other companies. And once those big companies start, the behemoths of the car industry start switching over, I think you'll start to see a huge movement there. And it won't, as we're seeing at the moment with lots of other industries, it won't be just a slow change. It'll be a very quick change. One of the interesting things I've found with the current situation that we're in is that the demise of physical cash. Every report I'm reading, it's kind of that sense of, well, we realized that physical cash was kind of on the way out, was probably going to be not phased out from a government perspective, but phased out from a user perspective over the next 5 years, as more people do contactless payment, more people do online payments, all those kind of things that we've now become used to. And if you look at the current situation now, I personally, I can't remember the last time that I actually touched physical cash or needed to, because you just want to contact pay and
I
everything.
suppose again, through the COVID-19 and the fact that the transmission of germs is obviously, as you say, what's going to accelerate it. And it makes me think of, in fact, when we used to go to Egypt on vacation with diving, the fact that we always said to people, don't touch the money. If you do use the money, because it's dirty, just generally you would come back with a stomach bug. Well, I suppose that's exactly the same approach, isn't it? No.
Yeah, but also you find now that society's set up to do that. Certainly from a cash perspective and accounting perspective, it's that sense of, I don't necessarily, money's a pain. From a business perspective, money's a
Expensive.
pain in
Banks
that
don't like it.
in cash, because I've got to work out, I've got to work out how to. I work remotely. Our teams all work remotely, and so I'm not sitting in a major metropolitan area right now. I'm sitting in Ascot, running my business currently from my house. But it's that sense of trying to understand that for me if someone pays me in cash, I've got to take it somewhere, which is a pain. And certainly for the last, for a lockdown, during lockdown, I got sent a check. I mean, what am I supposed to do with that? But it's that sense of we move as a society, we move online for our shopping and for reading and education and working and all this kind of stuff. The idea of saying, "Oh, have you got spare 20 or whatever," is not gonna. It's just not going to carry favor.
Indeed, and children today of having iPhones and Android phones and other things, you can just load money onto their phone, can't you? Through Apple Cash or
Yeah.
Google Cash or whatever the cash is. Doesn't even they can still just go cash. Very interesting. Very interesting. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for some background as to a little bit of Pocket Lint and what we think is the future for tech at the moment. But now we're going to leap into my Miles Better Conversation 10, and we're going to start with a little bit of a challenge for you. And it's
Okay.
what's the biggest challenge you have right now at Pocket Lint, and how are you hoping to overcome that? Yeah.
Wow. These are good questions. I think, and I haven't even started really, have they? So yeah, first one straight in there. I think the biggest challenge is probably adaptability. It's that trying to, and this is probably even more compounded, and certainly in the last couple of months. It's that I think the relevancy of trying to stay, well, the trying to stay as relevant as possible in a business is to be adaptable. The things that I did when I first started the business 17 years ago are very different to the things I do today. And even if you then go, well, that's probably acceptable, that's a long time ago. But then I look back and think, well, actually, some of the things that we were doing 6 months ago,
Right. Yeah.
we wouldn't do today. And some of the things we did last week, we think, well, actually, we've tried that and it doesn't work. So I think it's that constant, it's that thing of trying to say, well, there are certain things that you want to do and keep doing that make sense to do, but there are certain things that need to be constantly refined and constantly adapted to the situation. Now, whether that's because people aren't paying, or whether that's because people are paying, or whether it's because there's an opportunity that you see, or it's that constant. I think you just have to stay constantly aware of what's going on, and therefore how you can adapt and not be afraid to adapt without the sort of fear of, well, it's a new territory, or we haven't tried that before, and therefore mastering that fear to be a good thing rather than a negative thing.
Okay, cool. Well, that leads me very nicely to my second question, and you'll see how we've built on this. So, how do you continue to learn in order to stay at the top of your game, perhaps either within your role or within your industry? So, again, a great thing about obviously adapting. So, how do you personally adapt, or how do you, learn?
Yeah, I'm just going to say the same thing again at work. Can you just cut and paste the?
No,
I think it's that.
no, you have to
I
think
think
about it.
it's
This is layering it
no,
on,
I don't.
peeling the onion. No, very true. Perhaps that question is a little similar to the last one.
No. So I was being facetious. I think there's that sense of, look, every day is a school day.
Oh, that's, you're training, you're teaching your children as well at the moment due to
Right. Yeah, totally. But it's. I think you have to make sure that you're constantly being pushed at what you do, and whether that's you pushing to be better at what you do, or whether it's pushing to learn new things. I think that's all. I think that's all in the same basket. It's all very clear. I, even though I run my own business, I not only myself, but I encourage my staff to do freelance elsewhere. Now, that's not because I can't afford to pay them, but it's because I think it's important to have other people tell you how to be better.
yeah, influence,
So
outside influence. I can see that.
yeah, so I write a column for the Sunday Times magazine, and I have to submit ideas, and I have to, when those ideas, when they're submitted, if they're accepted, I then have to write the column, and then my editor at the magazine will come back and say, well, this was all right, or this was great, or I loved it, or could you could you just could you kind of tidy up this bit here or tighten this up, and that, because I'm submitting it to someone else, even though I'm the boss of my own business, it's, you kind of spend a little bit more time perhaps than you would if it was for yourself, because it's very easy sometimes to go, oh, it's 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, I'm just gonna, that'll do, whatever that is, that'll do, it doesn't, I've got it done, it's fine. But if you're submitting it to someone else, and you know that someone's going to come back and go, really, it looks like you just said that'll do, have you actually done your best
Yeah, you
here?
did a 4:50,
Then
4:45 to 5 o'clock, and I'm done.
yeah. And so I think that that's one of the things that you need to to keep fresh in this, is that it's good to sometimes have, and we kind of make sure we do this on Pocket Lint as well, is that every so often we get someone in, an outside consultant, to come in and just ruffle the feathers a little bit in a certain
Mm.
area to see whether we're doing what we're doing. And sometimes you say that to the team, and they go, oh, why are you bringing this guy in? I've told you it's all work and it's fine and all the other stuff. I'm like, yeah, but it might be a great way for us to see something that we haven't seen before, or just to make sure that we are doing what we should be doing to the best of our
Yeah,
capabilities.
exactly. Almost another analogy be, a fresh pair of eyes and, walking a mile in somebody else's shoes. Different perspective. It might just reinforce what you're doing really well, but also might just say, "Had you thought about that?" I suppose is the thing.
Yeah,
That's great. Yeah, good advice for everybody. Really, we all get very complacent, don't we? How you get somebody join who's new, enthusiastic, has got loads of new ideas. You're like, why didn't we think of those? So complacency
yeah.
gets set in. That's great. Cool. So a little bit about yourself now, Stuart. One more for you personally. What makes you feel inspired and want to leap out of bed? Now, sometimes, obviously, after working with your children, I'm sure no leaping going on. If in that mindset, it's a Saturday morning, the sun is shining, you're playing from what I call the 10. What makes you what inspires you and leaps you out of bed?
I think it's having puzzles to solve. I think that's one of the things that drives me, is that it's that sense of, if you get to a job where you're just doing the bare minimum and you're not really enjoying it, and we've all been there. I've had jobs before working here that where I found perhaps it wasn't as inspiring as I was hoping. It's repetitive. It doesn't kind of push you. There's no challenges and all the other stuff. Then there's a reluctancy not to bother
Mm.
doing it. But I think if you've got problems to solve, whether no matter how small or how big they can be. But if you've got things where you don't necessarily know the answer to, and you need to those challenges, or you're trying to achieve something, and there is things to solve around that scenario, then I think that's the thing that makes you get up and makes you want to do a better thing. That's from a personal sort of kind of challenge experience, but it's also that sense of, we tell a story on the site, and it's fantastic to see so many people wanting to come and read
Right.
and listen to the stories that we tell, and so that there is an element there of that driving through. But I think it's that, how do we tell those stories, but how do we tell those stories better, and how can we make them more relevant to people, and how can we therefore reach more people, and how can we, once we've made them more relevant and more, and the reach has got further, how can we then, let's go back to the beginning, how can we make them better, how can we tell those stories
Right.
better? And so I think that's a key player there, in that sense of, if it was easy and if it was, the same thing over and over again, I think that doesn't inspire
Mhm.
people. So it's that constantly trying to make yourself better, that's what inspires
Okay.
people.
Lovely. Excellent. All right, and we're moving on. We're on to question number 4. So thank you, Stuart, for your time and your patience. So, what's the best compliment you've ever received in your career or personal life that really resonated?
So this, you're going to laugh at this one. This is quite funny. I remember when I first came out of university, I went for a job in advertising, and I went for a job to be an account manager. I think it was Leo Burnett's big, massive advertising agency, and it was but this was way before the idea of The Apprentice and all those kind of things. But it was effectively one of those like workshop days where we had to do a load of different things. And in part of that, there was everybody, there was 10 of us or whatever, all fighting against each other, and
Not
all of
showing
this
how
stuff.
you're supposed to handle
And
it. Should you be best?
yeah,
Should you be the leader? That might not be what they're looking for. It could be a team player. Second guessing everything. Yeah, I've been there too. Been there, got the t-shirt.
I remember in my one-on-one interview, the guy said, well, we're reading this and we've seen the way you've acted and all the other stuff, and you've come across as quite tenacious.
Okay, nice.
Now, at the time, I had no idea what that word meant.
Okay, yeah.
And so I'm just sitting there going, right, there's two ways it could go, isn't it? So I'm just going to say, why, thank you.
50-50 and you landed it. So that was good. Rather
Yeah. And the guy was like, okay, this is bold, this is strong. And yeah, I didn't get the job, but it was I I like to think that that's quite a cool compliment, in the sense that it's he could have easily said arrogant, and therefore that twists it over to not being a compliment in any way, shape, or form. Or he could have just said confident or whatever. But I obviously went away and then read up what that word meant. But it was just that, it was the fact that, and then it kind of went very red, thinking, God, blimey, I really was quite arrogant by saying thank
yeah,
you very much to the tenacious comment. But I think that kind of not inspires me, but it kind of sums me up, in that sense of, I like to think I am quite
right.
driven, and the way I get things done, and therefore tenaciousness is that kind of, it is arrogancy, but with I like to think it's arrogancy, but with a nice side to it, rather than the negative
Well, hopefully
side.
it's wanting to bring people along on the same journey of your passion and stuff. So nice, like it. I haven't actually heard of that one, Stuart. You never
Well, there
revealed
you go.
that together.
See,
So
every day's a
yeah,
school day.
indeed. I like it. I like it. So one more little bit more personal sort of question, and then we'll move on. So I believe life's a journey here, and I'm all about myself taking my clients and hopefully yourself on the journey to success. But not obviously me is the answer to this question. But who do you think has been your best companion, perhaps within your business or even your personal life, and not either or, whichever, and what for what reason?
But obviously, I have to say my wife, because if she listens to this, I'll be in trouble if I don't.
Did have that as an option. Wife, I think I'd probably say the same with about Kate thing. But wives, given that they are totally your companion, totally loyal. Has there been anybody else on your journey? Maybe perhaps your Yoda or your
I think it's important to have mentors along the way, um, but not necessarily to have one mentor that you try and get him or her to do
yeah,
everything in every scenario. So I've built up, from a business perspective, I've built up a number of trusted confidants, for kind of a lack of a better word, that I'm able to talk to, but able to talk to about different things. Trying to, it'd be lovely to be able to, people talk about mentors at work and things like that, and I think it would be lovely to say that there are these people around that are suitable and knowledgeable in every single possible scenario that you will come across.
Master of none, jack of all, as the old phrase go, isn't it? You want masters in their field. So
But I think certainly my first boss taught me a lot about, when I worked at the Times, taught me a lot about people management. And I think that certainly in this day and age, that's incredibly important amongst, the way that we work and the way that we will continue to work in the future remotely and all the other stuff that's thrown in there. He taught me a lot about people management and taught me a lot about how to understand, you know, staffing needs and all those things. And I think that's been one of the benchmarks of Pocket Lint and how my team work. And very fortunate and lucky that we've got a great team that's been with us quite a long time. And then I've got another boss that is quite visionary and sort of will be very sort of cutthroat in the business world, that you can go to and say, well, I've got this interesting scenario that I'm trying to resolve, and he'll be able to give me advice on that. But my first boss wouldn't have a clue, because
no,
he kind of wasn't really into that kind of scenario, because he was about making people in his department incredibly happy and effective at their work. So I think it's important to have people, that not one person you go to every time, but to sort of have different, to surround yourself with people that complement your
yeah,
weaknesses.
cool.
And what I mean by that is that that perhaps you're not great at fractions, or you're not great at, writing, or you're not great at marketing your business, or you can see I've been homeschooling, but it's that thing of surrounding yourself, learning your weaknesses, and then surrounding yourself with people that kind of the antithesis of that. So therefore, they are brilliant at something else, and you can say, "Look, I know this is not my strong point, but I was wondering whether I can have some advice on this piece."
Well, you're making my life really easy here, Stuart, because you're just segueing into my next questions with a dream. So next one's going to come is about me, obviously, and Miles Better. And as I say, it is my interview, so I get to ask the questions. I wondered if you might better just, and again, I'm not looking for praise. I'm just trying to look at really so how to understand how perhaps Miles Better has helped you and your business, and how we work together. That has, am I a little mentor, or am I actually just a functionality that works for Pocket Lint?
Wow, that's a tough question to ask when you're on the other line, Colin. I might get just get edited and cut out from here. But no, no, it, in all seriousness, I mean, it's one of those things where my vision is about creating. Certainly, when it started, was about creating a website that entertained and informed people about the tech that matters. That's our kind of our mantra. And so, sometimes you think, well, actually, I don't want to get bogged down in the nitty gritty of the financial stuff. I want the financials to work, and I want them to be able to deliver what we are trying to achieve. But at the same time, that's, I didn't come out of school or university with a maths degree or accounting degree, or those kind of financial acumen that you'd have from a business. And also, talking to most of my friends that did university, you find that in latter life, you rarely use what you learn at university anyway. So it's trying to, from that perspective, it's been really helpful and brilliant in that way, because it allows me to get you to do what I sometimes perceive as the boring bits, but that are incredibly vital to how the business runs. Yeah, I think what's important though is that sometimes you have to, as an entrepreneur and as someone that as a CEO that runs your own business, you have to use numbers as part of the story, but not necessarily the
Of
complete
course.
story. And sometimes you can look at the numbers and say, well, if I look at this one set of parameters, this has to be done. This is what we need to
Mm,
do, and that doesn't necessarily fit into the wider picture of what's holistic or what's the right thing from a business perspective. Or sometimes it might be that, and that's where it's also useful to have someone that understands the numbers and can work on that factor, because I can turn around and say, this is the vision I have. I know I'm going to take a hit, but is it how much of a hit can I take, because this is what we need to
right.
do. And rather than sitting there going, well, the numbers say you can't do it and you shouldn't do it. But sometimes you need that reassurance that, well, that might be the case, but how much is
Yeah.
it going to hurt?
And I say that's the head and heart that you and I often talk about when we're reviewing the business and things like that. So
Mm.
cool. Good. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate your honesty and stuff. So, back to a little bit about Pocket Lint again. What are some of the things you're perhaps researching for your business at the moment? What's looking exciting within the world of Pocket Lint? Not necessarily technology, but the world of Pocket Lint.
So one of the things that we've focused on at the beginning of the year, we launched at the beginning of the year, and we have big plans for, is internationalisation. So we realised that there is obviously a large majority of people around the world that speak English, and that's where we write our content. Being based out of the UK, we obviously have a US audience as well. But we realised late last year that there are lots of people out there that love gadgets and technology that don't read English.
It's the universal language, apart from in 85% of the world.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we've been doing is working beginning half of the year, and we're now starting to see this as a rollout. Um, is is we're rolling out international versions of Pocket Lint. So currently, you can read Pocket Lint in English, you can read it in
Oh,
Portuguese, you can read it in French, and you can read it in Spanish.
lovely.
Now, rather than the more traditional way of saying, "Well, we'll just go and hire Spanish-speaking writers," French, etc., we've taken a leaf out of the people that we cover on a regular basis, and we're doing that all through artificial intelligence and machine learning,
Right.
so that when one of my writers, editors writes copy, or if I write a story on the site, it automatically gets translated into those three languages. And the goal is for the rest of the year is to continue the rollout of different languages across the board, so that by the end of 2020, we should hopefully have Pocket Lint available in 10 other languages in addition to English, but all powered by artificial
Okay.
intelligence.
And I know I'm guessing you have some review process against that because the old adage of ask Siri to turn the lights on and she says the weather temperature is type situation. Always.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of it's a tiny bit, but we're using. I mean, we obviously tell the readers that it is machine translated
Yep.
copy. The idea of artificial intelligence is obviously using a combination of different translate services like Google and Amazon and things like that, and so the system allows us to determine which is the best option and therefore go from that. And then the machine learning element adds an additional layer on there where it gets accustomed to the words that we use to help us refine the translations for those. Now, at, it learns, right? Now, what we're saying is we're not saying that this replaces humans 100%. And therefore that's why we have this notice on each article that's translated to say this has been translated by a
Hmm.
machine. But what we're finding in the majority of times, and we're talking sort of 95% correct, um, and it might be that sometimes the instance would be that it would be correct in a terms of you could
Right.
understand it if you're French, but it might not include some of the
Right. Yeah.
localisms or sort of uh, perhaps more guttural
Yeah.
kind of language that you'd use if you were 100% au fait with that language. But what it's allowed us to do is to continue to expand our audience beyond the
Yeah.
English speaking audience, the new readers around the world, but without changing the core dynamic of
Sure.
the team that writes the content and the frustrations from a business point of view of hiring and trying to source and work out timings and all the other stuff from those countries that we
And I
move
suppose
into.
ultimately that will allow you, if it is proves to be as successful as you hope, that may allow you to pivot to having some overseas written content, just because you can a
Yeah.
marketplace for it. Is that sort of
Yeah, I mean, for example, we've been running in Spain since February. We've already smashed our targets for where we want to
great?
be. We've overall our international traffic accounted for about 1.5 million people uh, a month since the launch this year, which is way beyond what we were hoping to achieve. And as I say, if it continues to grow in Spain or in Portuguese or in France or that kind of nature, then we can hire local talent
Yeah.
within those languages. I think the key factor that we've done and the approach that we've taken, and this is what excites me about this, is it's not a localized version of Pocket Lint for
No.
France. It's a French version for Pocket Lint
Yeah.
readers, and that those French people could be in France, they could be in Canada, they could be in Mozambique or wherever. Yeah, and I think that's the important factor there
Back
because
in England and just be a French national living in the UK that would rather read it in their own language.
exactly. And I think that's important because it allows
Mm.
choice. And it doesn't mean to say that we then suddenly, as an English reader sitting in California, you're then starting reading about localized French
Correct.
news
Yeah.
from
Yeah. Yeah.
Saturn in
Yeah,
Poitiers or
no, no, that makes
something.
sense. Well, Airbus is important, but yes, I see what you're saying, and but that could be where you could personalize it. So, exciting, exciting stuff. So that's ever onward, as you say, ever adapting, going all the way back to your biggest challenge about being relevant to your reader and your consumer
Yeah.
product. So great. Okay, so another personal question. You can see I'm bouncing between the two. If you could go back in time, we could do the hot tub time machine. We could do whatever sort of time machine, a DeLorean, a Tesla, whoever. And you
Yeah.
went back and you could talk to your 21-year-old self. What might you give him? What might you say to him? What might be a one nugget that you could give him, and not a result of the stock market crashing in 2008 and COVID in 2020? So,
It's tough. I've just been asked by someone else to do a time capsule for them where they want me to go back to the when I'm 10, and I'm struggling with that one. I think it's probably not to get too stressed
okay,
about
yeah,
stuff. And it's that kind of sense of, sometimes the storm in the teacup feels like it's going to end everything, but then you find that in a couple of weeks'
elsewhere.
time, it's not that bad. I mean, if you know, we can see that on a number
Yeah,
of global instances from, since I was 21 all the way through anyway. I'd probably also tell myself, and this is probably a very tenacious thing to say, I'd say not to get so stressed about not being on a 30 under 30 list
right.
when you were 29.
yeah,
And that it was okay to turn 30 and not have been
because
on
it's
one of
okay.
those
The list is
lists,
a list. Yeah,
um, because it's a list is a
there's a
list and
great
it doesn't
song that
matter.
I love listening to, and you may or may not know it. I don't know who the actual artist is, but the caption of the song is "Wear sunscreen," and it's a guy who delivers this thing. And again, it's in
Yeah.
that the only advice I could give you is wear sunscreen. The rest is a load of rubbish. But again, it's about respect, and don't worry about what you do, because it's life will go on. The sun rises, the sun sets, and you aren't as important as you think. So cool, love it, love it. Top tip. So my next one. What's your top tip for business?
Yeah.
And be careful, because I may steal it, because we're developing the Miles top tips of
Ah,
business. You might be my first guest presenter on that 7-minute video. But beside that, might be your top tip? Okay, love it.
relevance. I have this
Oh,
printed out on. I
I'm
have a
really
little
digging
thing
it.
on my wall that I have. It's the 3 R's, which is reach, revenue, and
Love revenue.
relevance.
Love
But I
revenue.
think relevance
Accountant. Love it. Love it.
but I think relevance is really important, because if it's not relevant,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Okay, and that's very interesting, because that just has stemmed through the whole last 25 minute of discussion, everything and things. So that's really powerful that you are actually living that relevance, because you are mission relevant. So
Yeah, because
that's good.
I mean, that comes down to, every from an editorial position. Obviously, as an editorial publication, we kind of there's always, it's always who, what, why,
Yeah,
where, when, how, right? And it's that sense of, if the story's not relevant to you,
yeah,
then why are you telling it? Right? If the story's not relevant to the audience, why are you telling it? If this and you can play that out to be part of business as well. If the business decision is not relevant to that moment of what you're trying to do,
yeah,
why are you wasting time with it? So I think it's really important from understanding, like, what you're trying to achieve from an audience point of view, as I say, from a publication perspective. But I think it's you can attribute it to any business, because if you suddenly think, right, I've got this crazy idea, we've got this core business, we've got this crazy idea, but it's not relevant to anybody, then you're
yeah.
just going to waste
And the
time.
reader won't then come back, will it? Because you'll
Yeah, or you'll just get caught down a rabbit hole, for whatever business you're doing, whether it's you're selling, you know, noodles in a supermarket, or whether
yeah,
you're selling, you're writing stories about, people. I think it's if if you try and sell it's I always do this thing where there's no point trying to sell, it's like selling ice to the Eskimos. Is it relevant to do that for them? If you can upgrade their ice, then yeah, it is relevant. If you're just selling them the same ice that they've got, then it's not relevant to
maybe
them. They're
with
not
global
going to be
warming they don't
interested.
have any ice, and you've been able to sell them some ice because you've manufactured it. But you're right, and that would be relevant.
But then it becomes
Yeah, it would be
relevant, so
relevant because
it's
they can't
fine.
get their own ice. Fantastic. The last
Yeah.
and final question is a little bit of fun. I usually feel this perhaps reveals some of your personality. So the final question is, what is your favorite movie and why?
Okay, this is, you're going to love this because it's so cheeseball
What is
that
you?
it's
Your favorite
unbelievable.
movie?
Um, it is me. Yeah. So my favorite movie is Secret of My Success. Michael J. Fox, classic '80s. I watch it every so often. It doesn't. Some of it doesn't hold up in that sort of in that kind of corporate land and
Yeah,
probably sexism and things like that. But the key story is the male boy that
yeah,
ends up owning the company, and and I kind of see that as it implies that if you work hard enough, you know
yeah.
anybody can achieve anything. And it's that kind of thing. Sometimes I say to my developers, and he always likes to say it back to me. But it's that nothing's impossible. Impossible just takes a little bit longer.
We make magic happen, but yeah, Impossible just takes a little bit longer. Love it. It's a great film. Must get that back out again. I love that there's a soundtrack to it by
You probably got it on
yeah,
Laserdisc, haven't
indeed,
you?
lovely 80s film. Sneaking across the corridor to get the girl, and you know the bed scene where
Yeah,
the crescendo that he's working to the music, the bang bang bang. Yeah, you know,
yeah.
it's such.
I mean, it had nothing. It had nothing to do with me moving to America to live in New York for 6 months. Nothing
Maybe
whatsoever.
it did. I think it did secretly. Yeah, it's so cool. Good. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Stuart, for taking the time this afternoon to chat with me. It's been really, really enlightening. I've learned a couple of things, even as your brother, that I didn't know. So that's really great and stuff. Your journey on obviously Pocket Lint has started, was both insightful and also inspirational. And again, particularly love your answer to the question about Michael J. Fox at the right at the end. That was a really fun, resonates to who you are, and obviously I know you better than the audience. So thank you for that. The top tip, relevance, that's just gone through the whole thing, and I may just steal that and come up with a concept. Obviously, please do visit
No
Stuart's
problem.
website. I'm going to let him give you that little plug in a few seconds. He does have a Facebook page. He obviously has podcasts, which are on Friday, so I'll let him close with a little plug. We thank you, everybody, for joining, and look forward to welcoming you to our next podcast. And I'll leave you, Stuart, just to close out with your closing comment, if you like to.
There we go. Yeah, pocket-lint.com. Come along, enjoy the tech. Hopefully, learn some things along the way.